This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Hello again. Welcome to the broadcast. The trans killer who murdered children at a Catholic church in Minneapolis left behind a manifesto riddled with rants. That manifesto was timed to be released on YouTube just as the shooting was taking place. In it, the shooter shows off guns and magazines, some of which had the words, "Kill Donald Trump," "Where is your God?" and "For the children" scrawled on them. The child killer had on a t-shirt that read, "Let's do this before the anxiety kicks in." Former FBI criminal profiler James Fitzgerald.
I can't believe there are not siblings, I think he had 6 siblings, parents who somehow did not see this, that there wasn't psychological or behavioral leakage in one way or the other, but someone had to see this. If you have a family connection who does something like this, you help them change their name at 17, that's probably when the fuse was lit for this guy to do what he did, 5, 6 years later.
The kids killed were just 8 and 10 years old, shot dead while they prayed in a pew. 17 others were hurt in that shooting. CNN political analyst Scott Jennings takes issue with the mayor of Minneapolis, who seemed yesterday to mock people of faith who rely on prayer at times like this.
I think it's wrong, frankly, to vilify or attack people of faith. I think thoughts and prayers are the most solid on days of tragedy for people who live their faith every day. There are probably people praying harder for comfort today than they have ever prayed in their life. We could probably sit here and argue out all the issues of faith and transgenderism and all the other things that have been raised today, but it strikes me that none of us ever want to know the terror and the absolute empty hole that will never be filled those parents of the 8 and 10-year-old are going to feel. And I just thought maybe the most useful thing any of us could do would take 10 seconds and just sit quietly and think about those families, because they are never going to be the same, no matter what we say.
The 23-year-old gunman who legally changed his identity from male to female 6 years ago killed himself after the shooting. His mom used to work at the church, and he was a former student at the Catholic school. Overseas, a Russian drone and missile attack today on Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. It resulted in at least 18 deaths, more than 40 others hurt. The dead include 4 children. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says this strike proves that Russian ruler Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace. Chaos at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. Director Susan Menares is refusing to vacate her post despite being fired by the White House. The top government scientist had only been on the job a few weeks. Reporter Rich Edson.
The reasoning is unclear, though. The New York Times is reporting it was over differences with Secretary Kennedy on vaccine policy.
The HHS secretary, a leading voice on vaccine skepticism.
Doctors are being paid to vaccinate, not to evaluate. They're pressured to follow the money, not the science.
A lawyer for Dr. Menares says she was fired for refusing to rubber stamp unscientific and reckless directives. Former CDC director, Dr. Richard Besser.
I am dumbstruck by how little oversight Congress has shown to the devastating moves that this administration has taken when it comes to public health.
At least 4 other top CDC officials resigned yesterday. One of the Fed's top officials is suing the Trump White House over her firing. Lisa Cook was let go for alleged mortgage fraud. She's the first governor in the 111-year history of the Federal Reserve Board to be fired. Cook calls the firing unprecedented unregulated and illegal. Pot has become a problem at the U.S. Open men's tennis tournament. Norway's Casper Ruud is one of the top players in the world. Here's what he had to say after his match yesterday.
I'm not a big fan of the smell of weed when you walk around. No, but seriously, it's not even. I'm not even joking here, because it's every corner, every street. You smell it by almost anywhere you go.
While smoking pot is illegal on the grounds of the U.S. Open tennis tournament, employees say there are people who do it all the time. The Department of Homeland Security has begun moving migrants out of the so-called Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Detention Center in the Florida Everglades. A federal judge says parts of that facility must be dismantled due to environmental concerns. And the holiday weekend travel rush is already here. A record-breaking number of Americans are heading off to enjoy the final days of summer, and drivers are enjoying the lowest gas prices for Labor Day in more than 5 years. NBC's Sam Brock has more from a rest stop in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Look, for so many families, this is a huge week for travel. Couple key takeaways right now. First of all, Thursdays are the new Fridays, which is to say people are getting an earlier jump on things. And as you mentioned a second ago, gas prices right now, as low as we've seen in a while for this time of year. The average price, according to Gas Buddy right now, $3.15 a gallon. That is not just 14 cents lower than it was at this time last year, but the lowest that it's been since 2020.
Sam Brock at a rest stop in Secaucus, New Jersey today. Still to come on the Noon Report for Thursday, how AI is threatening children, back to school safety tips, and the bow tie is back. Bree Tennis has that report coming up.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, tracking a cold front that's going to bring us some showers and rumbles, but it departs in time for some nice Labor Day weekend weather. Forecast details are coming up.
All right, Kevin, good to have you back in the saddle. We'll look for you in about 10 minutes. A local Catholic school's taking steps to increase security in light of yesterday's tragic school shooting in Minneapolis. Monsignor David LaPuma at the Our Lady of Victory School in Lackawanna, New York, says armed guards are on duty both before and after the school day.
Those guards are intentionally and strategically positioned so that they're in the best locations to see any threat that may be approaching and to react to it.
The armed guards patrol the church and school during pickup and drop-off times. School begins a week from today at the Our Lady of Victory in Western New York. New York State Police are reminding motorists how to play it safe around school buses, which will begin to run their routes next week. Cops say drivers need to stop whenever they see flashing lights on a school bus. Doesn't matter which way you're going. Stop if you see those lights flashing. Also, watch out for children in crosswalks and teach your children good safety habits like looking both ways before they step out into traffic. With the new school year just days away, experts are urging parents to keep an eye out for cyberbullying. Tina Davis, a school psychologist in Central New York, says cyberbullying can lead to teen suicide.
I would really caution parents to monitor, talk with your child about their device use, technology use, talk about the apps, platforms that they're on, who they're talking to online.
Davis says the prevalence of artificial intelligence has only exacerbated cyberbullying and mental health disorders in kids. Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday is demanding that AI companies stop predatory interactions with children. Sunday says chatbots routinely engage in sexually explicit conversations with kids. He fears children are essentially serving as guinea pigs for big tech experiments, and it needs to stop, says the AG. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is calling on state lawmakers in the House and Senate to come to a compromise and strike a deal on the 2-month late Pennsylvania state budget.
The leaders in both chambers have to make tough choices. We're down to the part where there's just a few things left, and each of them have to get uncomfortable. and now's the time to do that.
The budget standoff is threatening funding for schools, hospitals, and nursing homes. 12 of the past 25 state budgets were not passed on time. The budget deadline for those who care is June 30th. A rally to repeal bail reform was held Wednesday in Western New York. Family Life's Dee Haley.
Friends and family of Amanda Thompson rallied in Buffalo's Niagara Square yesterday in honor of their loved one and domestic abuse victims. Thompson, a 44-year-old Buffalo woman, was killed last month allegedly by her ex-boyfriend Ricky Crouch, who has been charged with murder. Thompson's friends and family members believe that Thompson was not only a victim of domestic violence, but also of the state's bail reform laws. Crouch was paroled from state prison after serving time for murder and was already facing prosecution for 2 prior domestic violence incidents. Thompson's family says Crouch should have remained in custody. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
All right, Dee, thank you for that. The threat of federal troops being dispatched to U.S. cities has caught the attention of one local mayor.
I hope the American people realize what's happening right now and they need to wake up.
Rochester Mayor Malik Evans opposes any effort to deploy National Guard troops beyond the nation's capital for policing purposes.
What's happening in Washington is different anywhere else. Washington is a federal district. Chicago is not. Rochester is not. Buffalo is not. Syracuse is not. Pick any other city in America. It is not.
The Trump administration is threatening to deploy National Guard troops to cities like Chicago, New York, and Baltimore in order to crack down on crime. New York is making a massive investment to improve the state's water infrastructure. Nearly $3.5 billion will go toward nearly 330 water projects all over the state. The money will help remove lead pipes, improve sewer systems, and ensure safe drinking water. Some of the funds will also be used to help protect communities in flood-prone areas. Police in one Pennsylvania county say scammers are dialing for your dollars. Family Life's Brian Query.
The Eastern Adams Regional Police Department in Adams County is warning about a rise in missed jury duty scams. On August 26th, a resident reported getting an email claiming to be from the sheriff's office saying he had a warrant for missing jury duty. Soon after, the resident got a call demanding $7,000 to clear the fake warrant, with instructions to meet in a parking lot for the exchange. The victim did not pay and instead alerted police. Authorities remind residents that no government agency will ever ask for money, gift cards, or cryptocurrency to resolve legal issues. Brian Query, Family Life News.
All right, word to the wise. Thank you very much, Brian. Let's pause, talk sports. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the New York Mets fans are abuzz about their new phenom, Nolan McLean. He became the first Mets pitcher ever to win his first 3 starts, shutting out the team that has the second best batting average in baseball, the team ahead of his, the Philadelphia Phillies. 6-0 the final. McLean threw 8 scoreless innings, struck out 6 and allowed only 4 hits. The Amazons have pulled to within 4 games of the first-place Phillies. The Yankees completed a sweep of the Nats, blowing them out 11-2 yesterday. And once again, they lived up to that Bronx Bomber name. Trent Grisham, Ben Rice, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, Austin Wells, and Ryan McMahon all hit home runs. The win makes 4 in a row for the Yankees. Tommy Pham drove in both of the Pirates' runs with a single in the 6th inning, and the Bucks beat the Cards in a pitcher's duel 2-1. Bubba Chandler picked up his first career victory, throwing 4 innings of one-hit baseball. Around the league, Cleveland 4-3 winners over the Rays. Boston down Baltimore 3-2. Toronto edged Minnesota 9-8. KC pummeled the White Sox 12-1. Texas annihilated the Angels 20-3. And the Athletic shut out Detroit 7-zip. In the National League, Atlanta had no problem with Miami 12-1. The D-backs edged the Brew Crew 3-2. Dodgers 5-1 winners over the Reds in that game. Shohei Ohtani pitched 5 innings of 1-run ball to get the victory. The Giants manhandled the Cubs 12-3. Seattle 4, San Diego 3. Houston shut out the Rockies 4-0. At the U.S. Open Tennis Championships, 4 American women, including number 4 seed Jessica Pegula, and 3 American men, all advanced into the third round. That is a look at sports.
All right, excellent work as always, Randy Snavely at the sports desk, and still to come on the Noon Report, how Canada is killing itself. The FBI calls it a hate crime, and a major shakeup at the CDC.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. According to a recent article in The Atlantic, assisted suicide is now so popular in Canada, doctors cannot keep up with the demand. The article was appropriately titled Canada is Killing Itself, and it described how medical assistance in dying, or MAID, passed just 10 years ago, but now accounts for about 1 in 20 deaths in Canada. Also, the shortage of what's wrongly called care is not due to a lack of interest from medical professionals. Doctors seem to be, in fact, flocking to join what the Atlantic article called, and I quote, the world's fastest growing euthanasia regime. Some doctors have already reported euthanizing hundreds of patients, and yet the demand is exceeding the supply. Canada's parliament legalized MAID back in 2016, promising increased autonomy and decreased suffering. But instead, the practice has corrupted medicine, threatened conscience rights, pressured the vulnerable, and expanded the whole culture of death. As the American Medical Association's official opinion still says, quote, euthanasia is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risks, end quote. And that's especially true in single-payer healthcare systems like in Canada. Eventually, the decision of who should live and who should die will be determined by financial realities and be justified by arbitrary ideas about so-called quality of life. In fact, whenever and wherever it has been legalized, the so-called right to die soon becomes a perceived duty to die. To call this whole thing a slippery slope is quite an understatement. MAID began as a practice limited to gravely ill patients at the end of life. But the law has already expanded to include people suffering from serious medical conditions but not facing imminent death. And MAID will soon be made available to those suffering only from mental illness. Parliament there has also recommended granting access to euthanasia to minors. Assisted suicide is simply not a medical practice. No, it's a practice that corrupts medicine. The best case scenario for Canada at this point is that it becomes a deterrent for the rest of the world, and that Christians there will demonstrate the kind of courage they need to in how they live and in how they die. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored by Bob Dittmer. And for a version of today's commentary to print out or that you can share with others, go to breakpoint.org.
Thank you very much, John. Let's head outside next. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. The call for this afternoon. Clouds, the sun, couple showers and thunderstorms developing in parts of the area. Breezy at times in the 70s. Cloudy tonight, showers and thunder. Low temps 50s. Tomorrow, cooler, breezy. Clouds, some sun, couple of showers. High temps tomorrow only in the 60s and low 70s. And then ample sunshine Saturday. Still cool, 60s and low 70s. Mostly sunny, gradually turning somewhat warmer Sunday and Monday.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Good to have you back in the saddle, as they say. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Thursday, the 28th day of August. Despite talk of peace, the war rages on in Ukraine. Russian rockets rained down today on Kyiv, killing 18 people in the capital city, including 4 children. Ukraine's president says the attack proves that Russian ruler Vladimir Putin has no interest in ending this war. The FBI is calling yesterday's shooting at a Catholic church in Minneapolis a hate crime. A 23-year-old transgender man carried out the massacre before killing himself. 2 children ages 8 and 10 were killed. 17 others were hurt. 13-year-old Jaden Willis is an 8th grader at the Annunciation School. He was inside the church celebrating a back-to-school mass when the shots rang out.
Well, right when it happened, I dropped down to get under the pew and I prayed. I said my few prayers, and then I realized, I can't just sit here and focus on myself, knowing that with God on my side, I would be fine. So I tried to just go and help out my fellow classmates, try to keep them calm and safe and let them know that they'll be okay.
One amazing young kid right there. The gunman had released a manifesto before going on his killing spree. He scrolled on some weapons prior to the shooting. Things like, "Where is your God?" or "For the children," and "Kill Donald Trump." NBC's Maggie Vespa.
Just before the attack, investigators say the shooter posted a series of disturbing videos showing numerous writings on weapons, including racial slurs, a call for President Donald Trump's death, anti-Semitic messages, and references to the Holocaust and the Catholic Church.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says there's been more than 450 hostile acts against houses of worship just this year. Attacks on churches have risen 750% since the start of the decade. The Minneapolis killer is a former student at the school he targeted. His mother worked at the church that ran that school. A stunning standoff at America's leading public health agency. The head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Susan Menares, refusing to vacate her post, even as the White House tried to fire her.
Menares had been on the job for 2 weeks when the HHS posted on X that she was no longer the CDC's director. Hours later, attorneys for Menares said she has neither resigned nor been told by the White House that she's been fired. They added that as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign. Menares' lawyers say their client was targeted after clashing with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over vaccine policy. 4 other top CDC officials resigned on Wednesday, one citing in a letter the ongoing weaponization of public health. I'm Mark Mayfield.
This morning on Fox and Friends, Kennedy claimed the CDC is in dire need of a shakeup.
CDC has problems. We saw the misinformation coming out of COVID. They got the testing wrong. They got the social distancing, the masks.
HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy earlier today. The mayor of Washington, D.C. says her city is seeing a positive impact from President Trump's crime crackdown. Muriel Bowser adds the presence of National Guard troops in the Capitol has led to less carjackings. However, she still admits she has deep concerns about residents living with National Guard troops patrolling the streets. California Republicans want to split the state into two, calling it a two-state solution amid redistricting efforts. Here's Brian Shook.
Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher argues it will improve representation for underserved regions.
And those forgotten people, mostly in the inland counties of this state, they have no voice. And in fact, now even worse, their representation could be completely stripped by the Gavin Mander proposal, Prop 50, that's been put on the ballot.
California plans to redraw its congressional maps to counter potential Republican gains in Texas. Gallagher says the new state would be among the top 10 most populated states in the U.S. I'm Brian Shook.
It seems like every day there's a new study warning of the dangers of marijuana consumption, but here's one that shows an upside to pot use for medicinal purposes. It shows medical marijuana can reduce insomnia and anxiety.
British researchers followed over 120 patients who use cannabis-based medical products for about 18 months and found the patients were consistently reporting improved sleep quality, less anxiety, and a better overall quality of life. Some patients also noted reduced pain with only mild side effects. The study said the research indicates that medical cannabis could be a possible option when conventional therapies fall short. I'm Michael Kastner.
A rare flesh-eating bacteria has claimed a fifth life in Florida. The number of overall infections has surged to 20. Most of these infections began with the consumption of raw or undercooked shellfish like oysters. The risk is especially great for older adults or those with underlying health issues who may come in contact with contaminated water. Perhaps you're getting an early start on your Labor Day weekend. If you are, you're not alone. Reporter Jim Krasula says the end of summer holiday getaway will cap off the busiest summer travel season in about a decade.
Tens of millions of Americans will get in one final summer getaway over the Labor Day weekend. There's good news for travelers, according to Aixa Diaz with AAA.
Domestic flights, hotels, and car rentals are cheaper, not cheap, but cheaper than they were last year.
The national average for a gallon of regular unleaded gas is $3.16. It was $3.33 last Labor Day.
Correspondent Tammy Trujillo tells us when the best and worst times are to be on those highways.
The best times to drive to and from your Labor Day destinations are Friday before noon, Saturday between 6 and 10 in the morning, Sunday before 11 in the morning, and Monday before noon. The worst times include Friday between noon and 8 in the evening, Saturday between 10 in the morning and 6 at night, Sunday between noon and 5 in the evening, and then there's Monday between 1 and 4 in the afternoon. As always, AAA advises making sure your car's engine is checked before any big trip, and make sure to pack some extra patience. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
All right, thank you, Tammy. You're listening to the Noon Report for Thursday on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, PA Family President and CEO, Michael Geer. We're talking Dr. James Dobson. It's pretty easy to see the split between right and left in America when you Google the name of Dr. James Dobson. The AP labeling him a key leader in the radical religious right who, quote, waged war against abortion and the LGBTQ plus movement. CBN calls him a champion of family values, a spiritual advisor to 5 presidents who spent his life promoting biblical values and strengthening marriages and equipping parents. The former had a focus on the family, which eventually grew to 7,000 stations in 150 countries, reaching 220 million listeners. This was a powerful man. Tell me your thoughts, Michael, on the late Dr. Dobson.
Dr. Dobson was a remarkable man who left an indelible imprint on families and children across America, on parents, on churches, and on government as well, not only across America, but around the world, starting with his book, Dare to Discipline, which really pushed back against sort of the permissive ideology that came out of people like Dr. Benjamin Spock back in the 50s and 60s, really returning people to biblical values in terms of how they parent their children. His impact is tremendous. Not surprised at the pushback from those who disagree with those worldviews, the news media and other things, but people listening to this broadcast and people who knew of Dr. Dobson because of the 7,000 plus radio stations that his broadcast came into, they know better. They understand the common sense wisdom and the biblical wisdom that he was presenting to families across America.
The thing that concerned me the most was that for every headline that praised his work on biblical values, there were 5 that slapped labels on him. Do you think that he'll be remembered as one that changed the tide, or somebody that pushed people farther from biblical values because of his unwavering approach to absolute truth?
Well, yeah, his approach to truth was something that he was steadfast in. He kind of had his hand to the plow and just kept pushing and talking about those biblical truths. Common sense values, honestly, that people saw the fruit in the lives of their own children. And the fact that he got criticism from that, from those who have a different worldview or different perspectives, is not a surprise. You know, Jesus told us that we would expect those hatred and negative things from folks who disagree with us. That's par for the course. And what is remarkable about Dr. Dobson is he didn't shrink back from those criticisms. He understood what the truth was, and whether enduring withering criticism or praise from other audiences, he just kept talking about what the Bible says and what common sense says, and what his research as a psychologist and experienced pediatric psychologist, what that taught him about the well-being of families and children, and what children need, like mothers and fathers and intact families, and those kinds of values that create prospering families and a prospering society.
And you know, it meant a lot to him because at 89 years old, he's still in a studio, still promoting, the Bible out of Colorado, which is just incredible at that age to continue the work that he did. Can you talk more about his legacy and what he leaves behind? How does it influence groups like your work with PA Family?
Well, I think his legacy won't be ultimately known to folks like us until we get to the other side, to heaven, to see the vast impact that he's had. I know for us at Pennsylvania Family Institute, significant impact that he had in encouraging the establishment of groups like ours at the Pennsylvania Family Institute, what we call family policy councils. That was just a small part of his recognizing that the vital role of the family was under attack, and that many of those attacks came from forces in society, including public policies at the state level level, that we're undermining and eroding the value of the family and those values that uphold the family. And so he encouraged the establishment of these independent state organizations as part of his legacy. But then I think about my own children. They're all grown now and have their own kids, but the legacy of the Focus on the Family broadcast called Adventures in Odyssey, which brought biblical values down to sort of a childlike level in terms of understanding some of the principles of how we are to live and following Christ. His impact just in those two realms is just significant. And then being the advisor to no less than 5 United States presidents on issues related to the family just show some of the remarkable impact that this man had on the lives and future of our country.
What can we learn about sharing the truth of the gospel effectively from the life of Dr. James Dobson?
A number of things. One, I thought that was valuable about him is he took these biblical principles and brought them down to a practical level of how you live them out in your life. And so we should be looking for opportunities to do the same thing about the challenges that families and individuals, parents are facing today. How do we take those biblical principles and bring them down to a practical level that people can walk out in their life? I think that's number one. Number two is to not shrink back from what we know the truth to be. Ultimately, when we stand for truth, though, again, we face the criticism like Dr. Dobson did. The lives that are changed, the culture that is changed as a result of engaging for truth is a promise that God gives us that the word will not return void. And as we engage, we'll see positive fruit come from it in spite of what critiques we may face.
Learn more at pafamily.org.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. And Faith Under Fire comes your way Thursdays during the Noon Report. You can also catch it online anytime on a variety of platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or our website, familylife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. On our midday weather map, we've got high pressure that has been in control recently, giving ground to a cold front heading south from the upper Great Lakes. That front will be associated with some showers and a couple of thunderstorms. Behind the front, it gets cool but clears out in time for some sunny skies heading into the Labor Day weekend. The call for this afternoon: clouds and sun, couple showers and thunderstorms developing in parts of the area. Breezy at times in the 70s, cloudy tonight, showers and thunder, low temps 50s. Tomorrow, cooler, breezy, clouds, some sun, couple of showers. High temps tomorrow only in the 60s and low 70s. And then ample sunshine Saturday, still cool, 60s and low 70s. Mostly sunny, gradually turning somewhat warmer Sunday and Monday.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally, noon time to make a fashion statement. It's National Bow Tie Day. Don't you know? That quarter yard of fabric, which makes any outfit snazzy, dates back to 17th century Croatia. We get more from reporter Bree Tennis.
The bow tie is a simple piece of fabric that brings style. Originally designed for men to keep their collars closed, but women wear them. Pets do too. There's a learning curve to getting that knot and loop right, and plenty of YouTube videos to help. You're in good company if you sport one. James Bond, Orville Redenbacher, Bill Nye the Science Guy, even Pee Wee Herman, all fans of the bow tie. So today, tie one on, because everyone can spot a clip-on. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, Bree, thank you very much. And that's our world, folks. The world we live in. Thursday, the 28th of August. Thanks for coming along. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report. Heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.